move to action item number 1, approve request from AT&T to add 3 new 10-foot panel antennas to existing communication tower on fire district property. And I think the way that I would like to proceed with this is that Anita can give us some background, explain how we've come to the point where we are now, and then any members of the board who have comments about this application can make them, and then we can open it up for discussion, general discussion. And please, if you want to make comments about this issue, raise your hand, and I'll try to recognize people as much as possible in the order that they raise their hands, but rest assured, everyone who wants to speak to this issue can speak to the issue. So having said that, I'll ask Anita to bring us up to date with this.
Okay, so we did receive an application from Lyle Company, which is representing AT&T, specifically requesting to add 3 panel antennas. Currently, the monopole that sits to the back of the property is AT&T's communications tower. They have 3 panel antennas on it now. They want to add 3 more right below those 3. When I received the application, typically I handle planning applications like this on an operational level. They don't come to the board. It has to be usually with residential building. I knew immediately that this wasn't going to be handled operationally, that it would need to come before the board. I called the planner, informed her of that effect, that it would have to wait. They wanted comments by January 3rd. I said that wasn't going to happen, that it would come before the board at our January meeting at the end of the month, and that most likely, in order to make a decision on it, just given the precedent of this board and previous requests like this, that we would require a detailed EMF report outlining the current EMFs and what the proposed output would be, cumulative, not just from their site, but from everything that's here, in addition to their new antennas. The planner informed me that Marin County is requiring the exact same report, and they had other requirements of the application, so they deemed the application in a memorandum to them on January 6th that the application was incomplete and that they would need to provide them with us, a signature from us as the property owner on the permit request because they need a zoning permit to do this, and that they also are requiring a detailed EMF report outlining exactly what we asked, what I anticipate we would ask for. And they're requiring calculated maximum RF exposure from the 3 new antennas, and then provide existing and proposed composite levels of RF exposure, and indicate whether or not the proposed new antennas operating in conjunction with other telecommunication facilities exceed the standards established by the FCC. So that their application was deemed incomplete by the county at that time. I told her we would, get back to whoever after this meeting, depending on what happens. I did, at that point, when I wrote the report, I had not received a request from Lyle for our signature. At the end of last week, I did. I received the zoning application, and I called them basically and said I would not be signing this unless I was directed to by the district to do that. And I spoke directly to the Lyle rep, basically saying this will be going before the board. I can pretty much anticipate that one of the things they're going to request is a report. I haven't heard back from them since then. So that's kind of where it stands. You did see the original transmittal requesting the application and the response from the county to them deeming the application incomplete.
So to summarize, they have applied for a coastal permit. The county has told them that there are several items that they need to submit that are incomplete. One of those items is the owner of the property, an official from the fire department needs to sign the application so that the coastal permit process can go forward.
Correct.
Do any of you have anything that you want to add to this discussion at this point in terms of where we're at with the permit and steps that we should take as far as the permit process goes?
Well, I think that we're, as a board and as citizens of this town, are asking for the same things that the county's asking for. We want the measurements of the EMS. So before we had even signed the letter for the permit, for them to submit to the county for the permit, we need those same facts and figures. So until they get those to the county and to us, we can't fulfill our obligation until we know those facts.
What does everybody think about, a direct written request to Lyle in that regard?
Well, I think we should do that. I agree with Shannon that until we see what the levels are, and then I think that what we maybe want to explore is in a letter. I don't think it was ever passed as a resolution when this happened, but a prior board made a commitment to keep the levels at a certain level. I don't know what that is exactly, but it's probably close to where we are today. And it doesn't appear that that was ever passed as a resolution from the research that Anita and Molly did in the minutes. But to me, it's something that me as a board director, am willing to honor, and I would like to include that in a letter, that we would honor that commitment to the community, and that without that, we wouldn't be able to be a co-applicant.
Would you be willing to draft a letter?
Sure.
So that's what I would.
But my guess is you need to talk to Laura real fast, because I suspect that there are rules that basically you can't do that. Even though we promised we wouldn't increase EMF, I imagine that they have passed these cell phone laws all over the country, and
I suspect, Peter, that the levels that we want to keep it at are well below the levels that the FCC legally authorizes. But I'm not having a big anxiety that by telling them we're not going to sign the application until we get the report, I'm not feeling hugely vulnerable about that legally. I think if push comes to shove way down the road, they probably have a lot of legal standing that we don't have, but I don't think we have to worry about that yet. That's my take on it.
My feeling is that the coastal permit process is designed to be the vehicle through which these issues get a thorough public airing. And I'm not sure it's appropriate for us to try to shortcut or block the process simply by withholding our signature for an application, but I think it's entirely reasonable that we ask to see the EMF study before we sign the coastal permit application. And I would ask for a motion authorizing Anita to draft a letter to Lyle, setting forth the comments that we've made here tonight, and indicating to them that until we've seen the study, it won't be possible for us to take action on the signature on the coastal permit.
I would make that motion and add with this addition to it, and that is that we intend to honor a commitment made to the community to keep the levels at whatever they are. Whatever they were, I don't know if the levels were made, if that was even documented.
I would like to say that Molly and I did a tremendous amount of research through years and years of minutes, because and I kind of remember around when it happened, and it had to do when our emergency communications system was going to come, the exchange, our upgrade of our emergency communication system was going to come here. At the time, Sprint was slated to be here, and it started this entire conversation. There was a commitment made to the community to keep the EMF levels at where they are. There was no action. We went back to 2002. There was no action. It was mentioned several times, but there was never an ordinance, a resolution, anything like that. Clearly the intent is there in many minutes, in many of these conversations.
I think after the presentation that you and Molly made at our last meeting regarding all of the instances of various members of the district talking about the intent to cap the EMF level where it was at that point, I think it's pretty clear that that's been the fire department's intention. And I agree also that the letter should say that we intend to honor that. At the same time, I think people need to be aware that regardless of if we had adopted an ordinance or a resolution or a motion, or it simply was reflected as part of the discussion, there may come a point in this process when the fire district has a problem in terms of its authority
Yes.
to carry out that mandate.
I agree, and I think Director Smith spoke to it. You know, if that's a decision that we intend to make, we will have to get together with legal counsel, because the lease is quite clear. There is one section in the lease that speaks to modifications or upgrades to the site, and our consent and permission cannot be unduly, delayed or unreasonably withheld. What does that mean? That's kind of left to be seen, and whatever decision the district makes, it kind of needs to be a defensible position, legally or not. I agree, much like, I think I read in the paper today or yesterday that the smart meter ordinance by the boards is not enforceable by the board of supervisors. It's potentially a similar situation.
Yes.
So we just have to, I think at the point that a decision, yay or nay, but.
So we have a motion on the floor to authorize our fire chief to draft a letter to Lyle, informing them that we need to see the EMF study before we can sign the coastal permit application, and also including the fact that we intend to honor the EMF level that has been put forth in the past by this board. And is there a second to that motion?
I'll second
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Before I called for the vote, I should have asked if there were any further discussion about this. Is there anyone who would like to comment on strictly this issue of our signing of the coastal permit application? Pam, I think you had your hand up first.
Thank you. So I appreciate this letter that's going to be drafted, and my hope is that with all the machinations around this issue, that the fire chief not sign a letter until it comes back to the public, so that we can review this together, no matter what the machinations are.
The letter that I'm going to write to Lana?
No. That letter I know is going
Okay.
ahead. No, but that this contract or whatever it is. not-
The request to sign a use permit application?
Exactly. Because it's our land. That not be signed until it comes back to conference here, so that we can all be a part of this.
Does anybody have a problem with continuing this item so that when we ultimately do sign the coastal permit, if that's the way it plays out, that it's on the agenda for a meeting and subject to public discussion? Anybody have a problem with that?
No, I assume it would have to be an agenda item anyway.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think that's a good point.
It's an action
It's a
item.
given that
It's an
it
action
should go
item.
that way,
Yeah.
and I think
May
it
I-
has to.
Well, I'm just confused by the process, but I haven't been paying attention the whole time since it started. Anyway, you have to sign the thing because it's a privately owned building.
We own the property.
Because you own the property, so that's why you have to sign. But what if you don't want it? What if you don't want it to be upgraded? I mean, if they're
We don't know exactly what our position is on that
When
one
is
in
the
regards to
contract,
the
like,
lease.
when's the contract over? Is this a renewal or this is an add-on? or-
2022,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Lease is-
Okay, so they want to upgrade.
It's a
They want to upgrade
technological
technically, and they have to go through that, and that is part of what the contract was, that they get to upgrade.
In order for them to
Right.
modify that tower from what the original use permit was issued for, which was 3 panel antennas,
Right.
they have to get the property owners, and this is new from the county, they didn't have to, used to get the property owners' consent, although it's written into our lease, the county is now requiring, so property owners can be aware of what modifications and what's going on in their property. But in order to vary at all from the original plans that were accepted with this tower, they have to apply for a new use permit. And that's what this process is right now.
Okay.
Also, I think it's important to realize that our signature on the coastal application does nothing more than allow the discussion to go
Take
forward.
place.
Uh-huh.
Right.
It has in no way, does it have any determination of how this ultimately comes out. Jerry?
Yeah, the one thing I was going to ask is this study and the meters that test where the electromagnetic field is, let's say. There's a little playground just right over here where my granddaughter plays. I'm a little concerned because who's making this study? Is it AT&T or is it the Coastal Commission or is it? Who makes the study and who has the meter? For example, I have a friend who has a Prius, who has a special machine that checks for the, electromagnetic. When you put it down by the floor, there's all kinds hitting your feet. But that's, we have this pill that we've taken, technology, and it's part of us now, it's part of our world. But to try to understand where these kids are playing out here and so forth, I'd like to know if it's possible, who's doing the study, and if there's a way to go out there and check it with a machine.
Oh, Jerry, I have a machine right here, which I take around with me all the time, and you can borrow it. Really, we have to do that. It's called a
Thank you.
tri-field monitor,
Yeah,
and I
It's
already
called a
picked up
what?
some tri-field monitor, it measures the electromagnetic radiation.
yeah,
In this room here, I picked up something already, which is,
And sure.
might be
Use
myself.
antennas.
Well, that
Use antennas a lot.
So like if you press a toaster down to toast a piece
Yeah.
of bread, well, does it pick up that kind of thing as well?
well, tri-field means electric, magnetic, and
Yeah.
radio.
It'll
So
pick
you
it up.
can measure all the fields. It's a wonderful, it costs $140, so you can get it online. And I recommend you become an activist and take it around with you.
I'd like to just take it out, just for the fun of it, to, for a
You
few
can borrow
hours.
it, you can, and bring it back to Healing Arts.
Okay.
You can promise to bring it back to me on Friday.
You have a lot of witnesses.
I really need this.
So to
I'll talk to you.
answer your question, usually it's the applicant that pays for that report as requested by the county and then soon to be requested by us. They hire a subcontractor to do it. So the money's coming from Lyle/AT&T to have that report done. I cannot, we have requested reports in the past like this and we've asked them to break them down into layperson's terms because I have a report that thick on the same thing, and I may as well be trying to read Greek. So that's, I don't know who at the county deciphers those reports, and if they're requesting one, somebody must be, so I don't know, but that's the answer to that. Lyle will be hiring someone.
I think it's getting a little step ahead because we're trying to judge a report that hasn't been created yet.
Okay.
So I think the first step is to get their report. And then if we think their report is bogus, why then now would be time to talk about who's going to do another one.
Thank you.
So I was wondering why they need to improve, and how is it going to help us? What is it that we need that we don't already have?
I can't answer that question.
My guess is it's 4G.
Yes.
They're modernizing their technology from the
Yes.
3G to 4G, they need new antennas. Well, it's faster, higher capacity
faster and higher capacity for our cell phones to work better?
Cell phones, yeah.
So does anybody know for sure what it
Lou,
is?
I asked our IT person what this was, and he said basically it was a technological upgrade. It is the, the 4G, they're all trying to stay competitive. All the cell phone carriers, they're 3G, now they're 4G, and they're offering this and that, and basically it's a technological upgrade.
Well, I'm wondering, has anybody in this community felt the need for more power?
I think that's a little beyond. the
Well, I'm just trying to understand.
I appreciate that you're seeking information, but it's somewhat beyond the scope of this discussion. What their intentions are and what they're trying to do now. Mary Beth?
After you finish your vote, which I think you haven't done yet, have you?
We did.
Yes. You did vote. Okay. So now we're into the discussion, the broader discussion. Are we?
We can have as
Okay,
broad a
thank you.
discussion as you like, but there are going to be further opportunities. We're not even started with the permit process yet because they don't have a complete permit application. So do you want to go into every
No, what I'd like
aspect of
to
this tonight?
state is that I would very much appreciate formalizing this unspoken, not quite formalized intention of the fire board to honor the agreement with the community. I think it. Pardon me?
We just passed a resolution doing
That was a resolution?
It was a motion. but
It was a motion
We just
of.
had a unanimous vote.
But see, I think that this is the kind of thing, it would be so nice to have it as a policy directive. Instead of having to depend on institutional memory, which if Anita retired and Molly wasn't here, every 5 years we have to go through this, We've been through this now twice, and it would be wonderful to have it, it framed somewhere on the wall. That this is our, policy.
Well, I think that it will be in writing. After the letter is signed and sent to Lyle, it'll be suitable for framing, and it will say that this board intends to honor that commitment.
Great. That would be really appreciated, and maybe but it's just that I'm concerned about institutional memory, and that we place it in an appropriate way, so that it's not just referred to in the minutes. So I think there must be a better way than just having it signed on the letter to Lyle.
It's a motion.
Do you have any feelings about that?
I do a little bit, because we really don't know what the future's going to hold for us and what we may need and absolutely require by, if our radio systems are upgraded to a certain standard that we must have, and it's requiring higher EMFs than what we as a community.
But that's mirror. That's mirror you're talking about.
But I'm saying
This
it
is
could be
commercial.
right, and it could be anything. It doesn't have to be our radio systems. It could be the future of technology to run all of our phones, to run all of our electronics that we don't even have an idea about. And I would hate to have set in policy that we can't go beyond this EMF level, and then it prohibiting us from getting the technology that we need.
Okay, well, okay, but the technology is the commercial interests will always be saying you will need to upgrade. I mean, for instance, the 4G, you know why? You need more bandwidth for the 4G is to allow a wireless reception of high definition television. Now that reasoning does not make any sense to my value system, which values health over being able to wirelessly download something that I can download through a wire. It's not, I don't think that that you have to make the decision between making your professional needs met and our health needs being met. I don't think that's going to be a decision that you're going to have to make. In reality, it's if you look at the difference between what you really need and what they're trying to sell for more profit.
Yeah, just what I was
And there's a
thinking.
lot more.
I appreciate that distinction, Mary Beth, because as a matter of fact, we're already talking about a new radio system within the county. Because there's a big countrywide move to make everybody interoperable. Where that's going to lead, I have no idea. I have no idea. Shannon's exactly right. On a professional level, we could require something completely different and more here. On a commercial level, maybe it's a different issue with these communications towers, but I agree completely with you. We cannot limit professionally what we may have to do here to stay interoperable with the rest of the county. Commercially, maybe that's a different issue to take up.
And maybe that's a distinction.
But
that-
AT&T is commercial.
Well, this is what I'm saying, but I agree as well that there isn't anything, we researched minutes for hours. And if there were, if the board chose at some point to make a, not necessarily a policy, but a resolution to this effect, that would be a good way to have it on the record.
Dave,
I have some thoughts, but I'd like to hear what other people have to say in the room first. So could we hear from more if other people have comments?
I'm not sure I understand, because a lot of times you use like code names for the letters and stuff. They're asking for a permit to build more on their tower, and we're asking for a report which shows the health risks of such a tower. Do I have that right? So
Not the health risks, but the output, perhaps.
They have to provide an information about projected EMF levels once they install the 3 new panel antennas.
well, is it something that does people suspect will affect our health? Is it something that will happen and then we will be the example community of, too many EMFs in the air and, everybody in Bolinas went crazy? I don't, it's a pretty hard thing to measure, but,
You're right. Those questions frame.
so it is about, that is what this issue is about.
Just to focus this aspect of the discussion somewhat, does anybody on the board have an objection to an item being placed on an upcoming meeting agenda to consider a resolution that would memorialize our intention to honor the existing commercial EMF level? And the resolution would have to make it clear that such a cap on EMF cannot compromise our ability to carry out emergency communications.
Yeah, I can support that.
So does anybody have a problem with that, or would you prefer to continue the discussion and take that up later?
We put it on the agenda and then.
Yeah, I'm not ready to vote on that one. I'm not ready to vote on that one. Let's put on the.
No, I'm just saying, as far as putting it on an agenda
Yeah.
for discussion.
And my understanding is we don't know what the current level is anyhow. We don't know what we promised in the past. We just are going to try and keep it down, right?
No, I would disagree. We got a report recently.
Someplace there's a number.
Yeah.
Of the current EMS.
And I think that would
What
need
is
to,
that?
that would need to be
I don't
part
know.
of any kind of thing that memorializes a policy. We would really have to establish that very clearly. And I think that can be established with the reports that we've had in the past. But we're not talking about adopting that resolution now. We're merely talking about considering adopting the resolution at a future meeting.
I can support that. I'd still like to hear from.
I would too. So, Martine.
Get heard over here,
I would just,
Randy and Martine.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know how many of the board have actually spent some time reading
the Ecological Option Network blog on the dangers of EMF exposure and the data that has come in about health effects.
Well, I read the American Cancer Society's report today, and I'm afraid you'd find that they're not exactly in line with your position.
No, they
And I
are.
was specifically asking who has read the other one. I'm happy to know that you haven't
No.
looked into it, but if they,
No.
specifically the Ecological Option Network site on this. Have any of you read that?
I haven't read that, I've read
There's
many.
quite a bit on
many.
there that you might want to look into, because this is a very big decision that's coming up, and there's a lot of data about it.
We need to make a resolution, you need to do your research so we can continue this discussion.
If you want to speak, please raise your hand. Anybody else have a comment that they want to make? Randy?
Yeah, I just want to make, you probably get to it later on, but, so we're stuck with this lease till 2022, no matter what? Is that what you said?
I wouldn't say no matter what. There are grounds, but I can't quote them off the top of my head. But I suppose it's technically possible for AT&T to breach the contract as well as it is for us.
Yeah, so my, then to continue, I hate the towers. And every day when I walk down to get my paper, I look at the towers and go, wow, I wonder how they got here. And it seems that we're stuck, it doesn't matter what we think. And it doesn't matter what you think. They control us from the way you're talking. We don't control them. And I think if we own the property, we should control them. They shouldn't have any control over us. So.
I think if we're talking about terminating the contract, that we're going into another area entirely, and I'm not saying it's not deserving of a thorough discussion, but there are trade-offs involved with terminating, even if it were legally possible for us to do that now, or waiting until the next option period comes up when we can make a decision about it. It wouldn't be a simple one-sided conversation about terminating the contracts with the cellular providers. We'd also have to take into account the impact that that's going to have on the operations of the district, and I think it would involve people having a really serious discussion about whether they're willing to pony up and replace the revenue that's provided by those cellular companies, or whether they're willing to accept a lower level of service.
That was going to be the last. Then, how much money do you get a month from AT&T for them to lease this?
What were you saying today about, in terms of percentage of our operating budget is provided by that?
Annually, it's about $70,000 a year from both the towers.
It's about 20% of our operating budget.
70,000
$70,000.
a year from both the towers that are out there.
So $70,000 they pay us, and we have nothing to say about it. You think $70,000 is a lot of money? I mean, we could probably raise $70,000.
Well, we had plenty to say about it when the contracts were on the table for approval.
Well, I
It
mean,
was
from what you said,
subject
it
to
doesn't seem
public
like there's
comment.
anything there's nothing written down about anything. You know, I mean, you have the lease, I mean, you know what I'm saying? They put the towers up, they're paying you the money, but it doesn't seem like from 2002, what Anita says, there's nothing written down about EMFs, this, that, or anything. I mean, you know, come on now.
There's a lot written down in the minutes. What we were saying is that there was not
Nothing
a
approved,
specific
I mean, it's just
action
like hearsay,
taken,
right?
but the intent is clearly there in all the minutes in regards to that, in regards to maintaining the EMF levels.
I still have comments I'd like to make, but I want to hear what everybody else has to say.
So we were going to read a letter into the record.
Oh, yes, Don Smith.
At
had
this
a letter.
point, or at the...
Well, at some point. But you have more comments, Phil, because you know.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. My name's Marion Weber. I'm from Stinson Beach. And we have been successful in blocking 4 cell phone towers. We have, thank you. And our last one was blocked by the spotted owl, endangered spotted owl. We were going to have one right next to our water tank. And the GGNRA said, you can't do it because it will hurt the owl. Well, if it can hurt the owl, hello. Yeah. So we want to support you in any way. We have many activists in Stinson. I think we have to broaden this to West Marin as a concern for our well-being. So we'd be glad to help out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Considering, talking about, reducing the EMS and getting rid of them, I think there's a large crowd here, of course, it's one amendment to what it is. So if you start taking cell phones away from a lot of people in this town, there'd be a revolution as well. And they'd be up here. So I don't think that, I think we're kind of stuck with what we've got. I don't think there's a possibility of reducing it because everyone below 40 years old is going to be up here raising hell. I think that we're wasting our time really talking about trying to get out of contracts, but rather just enforcing the ones that we do have. I think it's very good.
I think it's perfectly legitimate for us to look down the road when the contracts, reach their conclusion to talk about where we want to go from here. But I agree with you that right now we're saying that we will honor that commitment to maintain the EMF levels for commercial cellular providers at those historic levels. And that's about as far as we can go with that right now, I think. Mary Beth.
Thanks. I just wanted to tell you that I brought a lot of documentation about the health effects, even though the American cancer industry does not, it works more with the pharmaceutical companies than it does with independent science for public health. And what you won't find easily except on alternative media is wonderful studies that have been done, many, the last 10 years since we started being concerned about this issue. And I brought, this is biological effects for exposure to electromagnetic radiation emitted by cell tower base stations and other antenna arrays. This is an overview study by Blake Levitt and Henry Lai that I'd love to give you and hope that you can take a look at. And I also brought a fact sheet on cell tower health studies that is from France and Spain, Germany, the UK, other countries. I also brought a paper that by an epidemiologist, Dr. Sam Millam, that states most cancer in firefighters is due to radio frequency radiation exposure from the cell towers on their roofs rather than inhaled carcinogens, which is heartbreaking. And I feel terrible all the time that we can't protect our first responders better from this. This is a letter that I also want to give you that is from a woman named Susan Hackwood, a PhD, who is a medical, what does she call herself? Consultant to people who are, let's see. Anyway, she was responsible for getting the other thing that I brought here, the International Association of Firefighters Division of Occupational Safety and Medicine resolution passed calling for a moratorium on any more cell towers at fire stations until they were proven safe. And she explains why she did this in this letter. And this letter explains how because her local firefighter friends were having problems, they did studies, they did blood work, they did brain work, brain tests, and all 6 of their firefighters that they studied had damage from the radio frequencies that's documented in this letter. So I hope you can take a look at this, because I know if you're not familiar, please, I will. I just know that if you're not familiar with this body of work, it would sound a bit strange to you, but this is why we're concerned, and I'm very... Okay. And there's a lot more studies than we had when we first brought our concerns to the fire board in 2000. There's thousands more studies now.
Phil, I wanted to clarify something. If, once you sign the request to the Coastal Commission, haven't you then surrendered any impact that the fire board can have on the outcome of this?
Yeah, you're opening the door.
And if that's so, are you going to have a public meeting before you sign that?
Good.
The signing of the coastal permit applications?
Yes.
We will put that on the agenda so there can be further discussion at that time.
And in fact, if you sign that, haven't you then given up any impact you can have on the outcome?
I don't see how, it seems to me that that all we've done at that point is enabled a discussion to take place. So.
But that'd be before you sign. But that entitles, if you sign that, then the Coastal Commission will make the decision and you'll have no further effect on the decision, isn't that so?
The Coastal Commission doesn't make the decision, but I don't know, Dale, that we legally cannot sign it.
Why not?
Say that again.
Yeah, it would. Because what the application does is it allows a legal process to proceed. It doesn't, anyway, and I have some other comments I'm saving. I want to hear more, if there is more.
Anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet who would like to address this issue? Bill, I know you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to see the board actually pass a resolution stating that the community wants the standards at whatever level they were decided on early in the decade. And if whoever, AT&T or whoever else is on the pole, if they're not comfortable with that, they could move their service someplace else.
We are going to put that on a future agenda.
And actually pass a resolution, not just talk about it.
Well, I can't
put something permanent in the file.
I can't predict what a majority of the board members will want to do. The only thing I can say to you is that we can put the item on the agenda and we can talk about it.
Yeah, you're a public safety, public service community, serve the community.
Your point is well taken. Ellen.
Well, I was just handed this to read from somebody who, so shall I?
Persis.
May I? Persis, from Persis.
Persis Norton.
Yes. I have asked a friend to share this note as I am an electrosensitive. I live on Elm Road. I'm asking that you do not add on to or increase the frequency of the AT&T tower. I always felt that firemen and women were protectors of their community. Even the title Bolinas Fire Protection District states this. Wireless towers cause people physical harm. Even if you do not feel the energy emitted, people are becoming disabled, limited on where they can go, etc., because they are sensitive to something that is unseen. And it is a truth. Does this not matter? that the very community you want to protect has individuals living there that are harmed by something you feel will help protect them. And then there is that large sum of money, but it seems you have a huge fire station with many huge fire trucks. The money is like the carrot being offered. I vote no. Thank you. Persis Norton.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, well, Mary Beth was pointing out, there are so many thousands of studies now and independent studies that are showing the detrimental health effects of EMF exposure. And one of the things that's really stuck out to me when I've read some of the literature about it is that the effects are cumulative over time, and the more exposure you get, the worse it is. And the exposure is worse for children than for anyone, because they're still, cells are multiplying, developing. And so, kids who are exposed, from a young age are going to have much more serious health effects. And there's so many places people are exposed now. I mean, a lot of people have had the smart meters slapped on their homes already here, even before the moratorium. The kids are in classrooms at the school with Wi-Fi going constantly. And a lot of people have Wi-Fi in their homes. And so then to add increased exposure here, and from, I don't know, from one thing I read recently was that if you live within a 2-mile radius of a cell tower, that you're getting the exposure. I mean, we all live within 2 miles of this, pretty much. And so I just think in the same, vein as, asking you to, protect the health of our community, just to think about not adding any more layers of exposure to a situation that's already dangerous for everybody here. Thank you. Thank you.
Any further comments?
I have a quick comment. I think a larger context for this whole discussion is that we live in a time when there has been a corporate capture of all the major decision-making mechanisms of governance. And this is another example, along with PG&E's attempt to pass Prop 16 to immortalize its monopoly in the state constitution and to wipe out any alternatives for localized control of energy production. You can see this at every level of governance, from the world down to this village level. And I think what we have here is a decision between corporatism and democracy. And so I would urge you to fulfill your responsibilities, to first inform yourself about the issues here, the health issues and the democratic issues, and also to see it in the context of a larger political responsibility of all jurisdictions to fight the corporate takeover of democracy.
Did you want to have Don's note?
Yeah, we can read that letter in.
So Don Smith, who some of you may know or may not know, wanted to be here tonight, but he couldn't, and he's written a statement. So I'm going to read it, but this is Don Smith's statement. I just wanted to say that. Short wavelength electromagnetic rays such as X-ray and UV have been long known to be very dangerous because they can break critical chemical bonds in the body. Long wavelength electromagnetic rays such as microwaves cannot do this, so it was long believed that they could only cause water molecules to wiggle and thus heat up in the electromagnetic field, and that is the sole basis for the high radiation level allowed by the FCC. But recent studies correlating other longer-term effects, including brain exposure, call the FCC standard into question and have caused the European Union to set far lower allowable levels. They, like our regulators, do not want to hamper industry unnecessarily, but they do seem to take public health more into account, perhaps because their governments provide health insurance. We should not risk unnecessary exposure just because it is not known how microwaves disturb the body, and that there are some quite plausible mechanisms anyway, including brainwave modulation and abnormal gene expression, neither of which involve breaking chemical bonds. Our medical responders and clinic both work for the public health, and Bolinas Fire Protection District has thus appropriately limited microwave wattage from its antennas by agreement with the public. We should hold to this agreement despite the lure of lucrative leases. Large corporations routinely pursue profit by buying influence with Congress, with regulators, and with communities. But I would much rather pay a higher tax to BFPD than see us bought at the risk of our well-being. Our present cell phone coverage is adequate, and people concerned with microwaves should in any event first get rid of their cell phones and their portable phones, neither of which I use myself.
Yes.
I just wanted to speak before you get your chance. I'm sorry. I apologize. I came in late, and so I don't feel as connected to what's been going on. But what I think is that before you do anything with any of these people that want to add on, and I don't know precisely because I missed that, what they want to do, but could we possibly have a way of educating the community and each other more than we are educated now before you allow anything to happen, like have more community meetings possibly here for us all to study this work that Mary Beth brought, for instance, and get to know what the consequences of any action would be. Could we have further educational community meetings on this subject?
Right on. Public exposure, good film, Mary Beth produced. We could have it right here.
Yeah, we could show it downtown.
And just so we would feel secure that we're all well prized before we permit anything to occur. And so we feel that you are also well educated on the matters of health that are, of course, all of our concern.
Yes.
Could we hear a response from the board? Are they willing?
You know, I was asking a question whether we
That was
could
a
have
question.
community meetings here to educate us all on this.
I'm
More
not opposed to
thoroughly.
that. I don't know how the other board members feel, but I do think it's
Well,
incumbent upon
just
us
put it
all
out
as
there,
individuals
then
to
we can-
educate ourselves.
I think these types of forums are the best way,
Well,
because I learned something from Jim just now.
I
And from
think there
you.
will be another opportunity, at least one more here at the fire district, and then, of course, the discussion is going to continue with the county's consideration of the coastal permit.
I see, so you're
application.
basically not terribly interested in that, yeah. But we could do it as a community without you.
I actually think that it's, I agree with President Buchanan that it's individually everybody's job to educate themselves on it. I don't think the fire district can take a position either way in regards to holding public forums. I mean, if we hold one for, Mary Beth or Rachel or anybody's opinion, then we have got to be sure, being a government entity, I know the towers are here, but we have got to then hear everybody's, all the different sides, and I don't think we're in the position
Well,
to
maybe
be.
we could hold them elsewhere. And
Yeah,
then
I don't
fire
think we can be the
district doesn't
impetus for
have to
that,
be-
is what I'm saying.
Oh, well,
I
They
think-
can come to the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this
Yeah,
one is available all
that
the
might be
time.
better.
I don't think the fire district can be the driving force by what we choose to educate the public about outside of the realm of
Okay.
our, what our,
CPR.
yeah.
Okay, I get it.
So,
Very good.
but I think it's a great idea, and I think it's very important for people to educate themselves, and most, I'm here a lot.
I like that group
It's great, it's a
education
lot.
thing. We could do it somewhere else and you all could come.
Rachel?
Oh, I just wanted to say that Howard Dillon wanted his name put in here, saying that there will be implacable opposition That's exactly what he said. He wanted to be.
Maybe spell that.
Because the whole thing about the study is the trip up, because otherwise we're just going to have this conversation next month or whenever they fulfill their obligation, right, and submit their application with an attached study, right? So that's one study. I mean, it's so impartial. How could you guys and gals even think about what about another study? I mean, could we submit a study to you that you have to consider as well as the study that the corporation submits?
Why not?
I don't know why not either, because it's certainly not fair otherwise.
Maybe we should study our community. Look at all the people in my neighborhood that have brain tumors. I don't think it. I don't think it should not be looked into in our own community. Well,
yeah, but that's something else. I mean, a study that is done. Mary Beth, you must have you have stumbled over many studies, right, so far. There must be one that's good that could be submitted to stand up against this other one, for instance. I don't know. I haven't done any research to look at all the studies. I'm just suggesting two studies for you to look at.
Just to refocus the discussion, we're talking about a report that will project what EMF levels will emanate from this site if they are able to add 3 new panel antennas. That's what it's about.
They will be just for level.
And that report will be a matter of public record, and there will be opportunities to discuss the implications of that report as well as the ongoing process. This is not going to be the last time that our board has this item on the agenda.
Right.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Just one more. I'm alarmed because it seems like we're in this position where we're stuck with what we have and we can't even change that. And since these towers were put in, there's a lot more information about how dangerous they are. And we may even be forced to add more because of we don't have any control over this. And that's alarming to me. I think we should have the right to get those towers the hell out of here if we don't want them. Right. Because of what we know now. And anyway.
Yeah, and excuse me, we must remember that we must add the effect of the smart meters, the accumulation of that electromagnetic radiation, add that to the towers. Add the towers to what's in our homes. This is important.
Well, I think this is the beginning of the discussion that's going to carry on over a period of time. So I appreciate everyone coming and sharing their feelings about this. And stay tuned.
I have some thoughts I want to share.
Yeah, I knew if I started trying to cut it off.
We want to hear.
I guess a couple, can I do that?
Please.
A couple things. First of all, I think we need to recognize we're in this together. You're looking at a board that did not sign a contract for those cell towers. You're looking at a board that did not make that commitment to the community. You're looking at a board that doesn't have a resolution in its minutes to that commitment. We are in this together. Jim's right. Democracy depends on personal education and accountability. When you go on and start to research this, the answer is not blatantly clear. It is not blatantly clear.
To you, maybe.
Well, may I have my say? It is not that clear. And secondly, if we don't like Verizon and AT&T competing in our community to one-up each other for higher service levels, there's an easy solution to that. When this meeting started tonight, I heard a cell phone ring. If you don't like it, turn them off. If you don't like the waves from high-definition televisions, don't have one. Don't put your board that wants to help this community, wants to deal with emergency access issues, wants to deal with getting the best apparatus for volunteer firefighters, not paid firefighters, people from us who give every Tuesday night to train, who respond to the heart attack calls, and so forth. Don't put them in that spot. We are in this together. Turn them off. Does your network, Mary Beth, tell you, if you have a cell phone at your ear, how that radiation compares to standing 100 feet away from this antenna behind us? My guess is...
We have graphs that compare the different levels.
My guess is we are harming ourselves every time we put that thing to our ear.
Definitely.
And it isn't just your cell phone, it's your mobile phone. And if we decide as a community we would like to live in a cleaner, safer environment, and we think that that part of how that would happen is get rid of the cell towers, then we have to be mindful that if we don't like that, then we have to have a heart-to-heart discussion in our community about whether dropping the funding to the volunteer firefighters is more important than getting rid of the towers. If it is, then we need to talk about what service levels are we willing to drop to, or are we willing to make up that difference? We have to have that discussion. So it isn't simple. It isn't just say, deny it, and now the problem went away, and everybody can go back to using their cell phones, watching high-definition television, and everything else. So I just want to make a real strong pitch to you. We are in this together. And if everybody doesn't pick up a piece of their own part of it that they can be accountable for, what I would say, Jim, if you want to take over democracy, you can have my seat on the board. And you can sit here. Because we've got to be in this together. And we've got to recognize that every time you turn on your cell phone, you're part of that problem that you don't like. And there are many of us in this room that know that. We're part of the problem. Just for the record, I don't own a cell phone.
Bravo.
So, but I want to be really clear with you. We're in this together. If you come here and we don't, and it isn't clear. I can tell you, I've spent time researching this, and the studies that show there's problems and the studies that show there aren't problems, it is not black and white. Now, it won't surprise me if someday we discover that this wasn't a good idea, just like turns out DDT wasn't a good idea. Turns out just like Tom McCann having x-ray machines in the shoe stores so that you could look at your feet wasn't a good idea. But you have to recognize that you have a board here that is doing what we can do to maneuver in the system we have. You can point fingers and say we're not being democratic. Then what I say is get off your butt and get educated and really look through the issues here.
That's what we were talking, that's what I was talking about.
So,
but you know, what I think is
Wait,
that
David isn't through yet.
No, I'm that's it.
All right, David, thank you, David.
I think we're starting to go around and around
Yeah.
a little bit. And I think we need to move along with a fairly long agenda tonight. And just be assured that this is not the last opportunity that you'll have to come and make your feelings known and to be heard. So,
But isn't there another agenda item about this whole subject?
we are moving to, we agreed to move action item 6 up to follow this item. And if there are no more comments from board members, I say we move along to action item number 6, which is proposal from AP Wireless Infrastructure Partners, LLC, to purchase communication leases from the Bolinas Fire Protection District in the amount of $858,299.99. 99 cents.
It's a
It's a typo. So I would like to begin the discussion of this item by asking Anita to describe the communications we've had with AP Wireless, who they are, and what this means.
more.
You know, this came out of the blue. We've been approached in the past. There are companies out there that go around buying up communications leases, and rather than having whatever entity holds that lease, waiting the next 20 years to get a monthly check, they pay you cash up front, and some cash-strapped jurisdictions have been taking advantage of this. So he called me. I said, well, you're welcome to make a proposal to the board. This came in kind of late. They're offering to buy up both the leases. I have not had an opportunity to research even what the implications of this is, and even if their numbers come out, you know, to what the life of the leases are, but they buy up communications leases. My very preliminary information at this point is that the way and in the proposal is that what they then try and do is co-locate additional carriers, and the property owner gets 80% of that increased income, and these guys get 20%. I was very clear with him that we have declined any sort of communications co-location, and that they would not have an opportunity to increase their income by doing that. It's my understanding from a very brief discussion with our legal counsel that somehow the lease is still in place, so the property owner, you know, in regards to having a say on things, still is in place. These guys don't then call the shots on the lease. So I have no idea what this means. They're offering us almost $1 million to buy the two leases out, and they would, and I don't know what that,
So that they
what that
can make a
means,
lease with the
basically,
people who need
what the
it.
implications of that is.
It turns out there seem to be quite a few companies in this business.
Yes.
With a quick look, I spent a couple hours looking at it today. There are a lot of companies who do this stuff. It makes me real nervous. I can't imagine you're not turning over a lot of the control, even though I couldn't find where that was in there.
Yeah, I would have to agree, but again, I haven't had a chance to. And we've been approached in the
Anyone
past.
here who has any enthusiasm for this
I think it's a
proposal?
bad idea. I just, as like Peter says, it gives more control, and we're wanting to go in a different direction.
Does anyone have an
Besides
objection?
financially, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's almost the same cash flow as what the remaining term of our contract is. And you know that there's just a tremendous upside for them financially, and that's going to be because they're going to want to put more antennas out there.
And
They see
probably
it.
will
They
be
see a
able
big
to.
market. So I think it's just a really bad idea. I would tell them, don't bug us.
Does anybody have any objection to Anita getting back to AP Wireless and indicating to them that the board declined to consider their proposal?
I don't find objection.
Great.
You want a motion?
You want to make a motion on that as it's an action item, or?
Sure.
What?
To decline the proposal, it's an action item. To decline.
Make a motion.
Oh, yeah.
Make a motion to
Yeah.
call AP Wireless and define their offer.
I second that.
All in favor? It's unanimous to decline the offer. Moving along.
Thank you so much.
Next item is 4C, discussion